Now, for the long-awaited review of Truthears X Crinacle Zero, $50 hype train IEM, market-breaking in a lot of regards. This thing is a big love for me, but despite how awesome it is in a lot of ways, there are some downsides, some cons to it, and in this video we'll discuss all of that, and also comparing this one to the Moondrop Aria, the Dunu Titan S, and the other Zero. Hey guys, Timmy, welcome back to another video on Gears Audio, and today we have a review of the long-awaited Truthears X Crinacle Zero. Yes, a true hype train this one is, making waves across the YouTube, across the community. So how good is this really, and what's so special about it? Let's first jump into the bass. This one is tuned to the Harman Target, the 2019 one if I'm not mistaken. It has a lot of mid bass and good sub bass as well, though a little bit rolled off. But the thing to note here, the best part about the bass is that it's so well separated from the mid-range. It's probably the cleanest tuning you can get while still having monstrous amount of bass. The only other IEM that I can think of off the top of my head that's tuned this way is the Moondrop Variations. Now, there's tuning differences between these two obviously, but being that this is $50, it comes fairly close to how the variation is tuned, which to me is impressive. The clean separation between the bass and the mid-range really helps to separate the instruments. Like the lows never touch the mid-range, so the vocals, the instruments, they shine on their own away from the bass, though you still get a ton of bass out of it. The one downside I would say is that it doesn't really have a lot of depth, so it doesn't hit really deep. It kind of stays in the same playing field as the other instruments and vocals, so the bass never really feel like it has dimension, if you will. So the bass and the vocals, though really well separated and clean, don't feel like they have any layering or depth to them, and that is a little bit of a problem when it comes to busier songs. It does feel a little bit distracting. But one thing I should note though is that this is $50, and that complaint I have about the bass, does it apply quite well to the price tag here? I would say it really doesn't. It's more of a nitpick at best. In terms of bass quality for the price, it's really good. On to the mid-range, you get an extremely clean mid-range from lower mids all the way up to a really forward, lively upper mid-range. Now, forward and lively in a way that's never shouty, never too much. People who enjoy a slightly more relaxed DNA can enjoy the upper mids on the Zero as well. Now, the biggest thing that people don't like about this style of tuning is the lack thereof lower mids, right? It's not full, it's not warm, it doesn't really have a lot of meat to it. It's clean, yes, it's analytical style, yes, but some male vocals and some instruments that requires a little bit of warmth to feel natural, if you will, do come across a little bit in the backseat. And that's something that happens in the Zero. Vocalists like Michael Bublé, Frank Sinatra feel like they lack a little bit of meat to them. So this set is not the best for male vocals in my personal opinion, much better for female vocals. Other than that though, extremely well done mid-range. There's really little to fault, and the only thing that I fault about it is pretty much all preference based. Now on to the treble area. This has decent to good treble extension. It lacks a bit of treble air that I really like in the variation, so that's one of the biggest key difference between the two tuning wise. The variation has a sense of openness, a sense of air. The extension on the variation also feels more natural, while on the Zero, the extension almost feel a little bit on the harsh side, and also again lacking that sense of air makes the stage almost feel a little bit more compressed than it needs to be. So yeah, treble wise I would say is good. It's certainly better than a lot of IEMs out there under $100, because a lot of IEMs under $100 barely has any treble. Yeah, like they don't really do well there. I would say the Truthear Zero is one of the best one at that. All in all, $50. I'm sorry I keep going back to the price, but that I have to do it. All the faults that I'm saying in the video is just for the sake of having some con to say, but for $50, really, a lot of these are nitpicks. So yes, treble wise for $50, it is really good, though don't expect perfection. Next is technical performance, detail, soundstage, and imaging. So let's bring up my scale here for details. This thing lands around the Blonde 03. Yeah, around that area. I would say a little bit over the Blonde 03. Maybe I'll give it like about halfway to the Starfield. Yeah, that is the biggest bane of this IM, and it's the single thing that's gatekeeping it from being in the upper tier of IEMs. It doesn't compete so well with sets like the Aria or the Dudu Titan S or the 7Hz Dioko in this department. The biggest issue I have in regards to details has to do with the imaging and the soundstage. The imaging on here is quite, I would say, all over the place almost. It's really not pinpoint since everything feels like it's playing on the same playing field. It lacks that sense of layering, lacks that sense of depth. And soundstage as well, I would say this is average to below average at best. Not a lot of elements feel like they're playing around the edge of your head, and nothing feels like it's playing outside of your head. A lot of it feels like it's being, you know, placed in this little ball in front of you almost. So the soundstage and imaging here is not great, though I have to say again that for $50 I would say that is the norm, the acceptable norm. So the Zero really doesn't impress nor disappoint in that department. It's just since everything else about it is so good, this is the easiest part for me to break down and nitpick, to be honest with you. But yeah, in the context of price, is still not a disappointment detail-wise. Now on to the comparison section. Let's first start off with Moondrop Aria. So the Moondrop Aria is better than the Zero in these ways. Number one, detail retrieval. Number two, soundstage. The Aria is wider, has more sense of air, the bass do hit deeper, so it does have some sense of layering as well. Now, the Zero is better than the Aria in these ways. Number one, bass control. Number two, treble extension. Number three, overall mid-range tuning. Now, as you can see, the Aria is better than the Zero from a more technical standpoint, but the Zero is better than the Aria in every other way. The tuning on the Zero is just flat superior to the Aria from bass to treble. Now, depending on your preference, you might enjoy the Aria's bit of warmth in the mid-range more, and some may enjoy a more cleaner mid-range on the Zero, but all in all, I would take the tuning of the Zero over the Aria any day, especially for that treble response. Having good treble is so huge for me personally, and it's so huge to make the song or the track feel more balanced overall. The Zero simply does that better than the Aria. So which one should you buy, the Aria or the Zero? I would say if you listen to a lot of male vocals, the Aria is still the way to go. It has more details and better soundstage as well. So the Aria is still plenty competitive in today's market, don't get me wrong. But if you don't really care too much about that, you want a clean tuning, you want to hear what high-end tuning can sound like, then the Zero is the way to go. Just keep in mind you are taking a little bit of a detail cut versus the Aria. Now I'm going to touch briefly about the Titan S. The Titan S is like the Aria, but more bright leaning, more upper mid-range energy, and less bassy and a little bit less warm in general. In comparison to the Zero, I would say the Dudu Titan S doesn't have the same balance that the Zero have. I still prefer the tuning on the Zero over the Titan S. The Titan S is a bit bass shy. You are getting a lot of vocals, and if you love vocals, of course, the Titan S is absolutely the way to go. But if you need more bass, you don't want just the vocals, then the Zero is the better choice. Detail wise, the Titan S is just like the Aria. It's gonna be better than the Zero, both in imaging and in soundstage. Now for the last comparison, we're pitching this Zero versus this Zero, the 7Hz Sound Notes Zero, $20 IM. This thing is also extremely good for the price, and in terms of which one is better, I would say